Okay, happy Wednesday. This is day 3 of the Confidence on Camera tutorials. Lecture at home, homework in class. We're going to be talking about story today. And I want to talk to you about the way that I normally recommend that students break down stories in class. So if you want to follow along on the Facebook page, you can find images. We're using a script from a movie called If I Stay, which was a 2014 film. These are the actual audition sides for the character of young Mia, who's the young version of the main character. And so that's what we're going to use to talk about. Now, yesterday I talked about confidence, and it was a little bit all over the place. The key point that I want you to take away from yesterday is that the first thing that people see, the first thing that the camera sees is your confidence. They sort of make this assumption about how confident you are based on how much ease you have in your body. And when we start talking about what that looks like, it really essentially goes into preparation. If you prepare with all of that ease, then you're much more likely to be able to walk into the room with all of that ease. Yeah, and the after ease, whether the next thing the camera sees is whether or not you're telling the story. Yeah, and so telling the story is enormously important. Yeah, and there's lots of different ways to understand stories, some of which are very, very complex. And if you're interested in some books that would help you go into story a little bit more, actually, let me put those in the meeting. So I'm going to plug my own book, which is Confidence on Camera, which you can find as a free download at bizstudio.ca/work, but also The Power of the Actor by Ivana Chubbuck. Again, I'm putting that in the chat window for you. And The Intent to Live by Larry Moss. And then an old book, but still really useful one called Audition by Michael Shirtleff. And the drama department at your school, once you're allowed to go back to school, may have a stack of copies of Audition by Michael Shirtleff. They did it at the school that I went to. Now, when I'm going over scripts with students, I want to make things a lot simpler. I want a series of questions that I can ask people in a couple of minutes. And today, maybe it'll take us 15 minutes. But the idea is that if you ask yourself these questions about scripts over and over again, you'll get to the point where it'll take 2 minutes or 5 minutes. Or as you're on your way to your audition, you're like, well, I learned my lines and I thought about my eye lines. Remember, day 1 was your eye lines and where you're looking, where things are. But did I ask myself the rest of these story questions? And you can go over them. So I'm going to go over them in general, and then we're going to apply them to the script. So close that. Just going to get everything ready for you. Okay, here we go. So I've pulled up the script for you right here. What we've got is my basic story questions, which are, what is the story? Who are the characters? What do the characters want? So if you're taking notes at home, I can also cut and paste this into the chat window for us really easily. Maybe I'll do that now so that if you're taking notes on your computer, we make your life as easy as humanly possible. So the story is the story of the whole project. and the story of this scene, and then the moment before and the moment after, and then what are called the beats or the changes. Yeah, and so if we start by reading this whole scene, one of the things that I recommend you do when you first get a script, and this comes from Stuart Akins. If you go onto my YouTube channel, which is Biz Studio Screen Acting, BIZ Studio Screen Acting, you find a bunch of videos from a casting director named Stuart Akins. And Stuart Akins, he came in one whole summer. It was quite a while ago, maybe 7 or 8 years ago. He was a very successful local casting director who then moved on to run the film department at Capilano University. But he cast the Twilight movies and a whole bunch of different TV shows. And towards the end of that summer, he let me record his entire lecture, and then I split it up into 10-minute segments and I put it up on YouTube. So you can look at that. One of the things that Stuart recommended with scripts was when you first get it, read everything on the page out loud. So when people are watching the audition, they're going to be looking to see, can they see the story in your body? Are they seeing the story come through in you, in your face, in your voice, in your body, in where you are placing things and what you are imagining? That's what they're going to be looking for. But that starts with, did you get the story that the writer gave you? Are you, like my friend Kirsten Clarkson says, collaborating with the writer? Are you working with the writer? And so if I stay, young Mia, Professor Christie takes notice. Now this is called stage direction. This here, it goes all the way to the sides of the page. You can see the formatting is really different. This little number here is the scene number, right? So this is scene 20, interior Hull House evening. This up here is the page number, page 14. It's usually about a minute a page. So this tells us is about 15 minutes into the film. So this is early on in this feature film. Professor Christie, take notice, Mia is a really good cat. She's been looking forward to your visit all week. Professor Christie, and your daughter is how old? Kat and Denny, 12. Professor Christie is impressed. Now you're reading all of the crossed out bits because it gives you information that you wouldn't otherwise have. Then you don't have to invent things. And very often when I'm working with students, they come in not having read these crossed out bits, or they skimmed them, but they didn't really process them, which is why you read it out loud to yourself, even quietly. Interior Hull House evening. Kat, Denny, Mia, 12, and Teddy, 4, have dinner with Professor Christie, bottles of wine, much laughter. By the time I came down, Mia, voiceover. By the time I came down for dinner, Professor Christie had offered to take over my training. I play the drums. They all laugh. And before long, it was time for my first recital. Interior Music Recital Hall, stage backstage day. 10-year-old boy performs a wonky version of Carole King's Tapestry on the clarinet. Backstage, a couple dozen kids warm up, a painful aria of screechy violins and clunky piano. Good, so we've read this crossed out bit, so we know that a bunch of kids are performing. They're 10 and 12, right? So they're fairly young children, and they sound bad, right? A painful aria, and you could always look up the word aria. You can look it up on your computer or a phone or a tablet. All of you have one of those or access to them because that's how you're checking in with me now. So easy. You can put it into Google. If you ever run into a word that you don't know how to pronounce, you can also put it into Google Translate and just hit the little speaker button and get it to pronounce it for you. So there never really was a good excuse to show up to an audition and not know what one of the words in the script does, but now even less so, because it really takes you 10 seconds. And so it's the kind of thing that comes across as unprofessional or unprepared or lazy, just to have gone like, well, I think I kind of know what that word means, maybe, or just skip it. Mia, 12, and so everybody is reading Mia, or we're imagining that you're going to audition for the character of Mia. 12, hides in the folds of the stage curtain, her terrified eyes peeking out at the audience. She looks left, then right, then runs out the stage door. So, scene 22, X is exterior, interior and exterior, music recital hall day. Mia huddles on the stoop outside the stage door, hyperventilating into her hands. So, hyperventilating, which again, you could look up and get way more information than you needed, but Wikipedia would tell you what hyperventilating was really fast. It means they're like, where somebody's taking those really short, shallow breaths like they can't get enough air. Denny, half hipster, half square, comes out the door looking for her. He takes a seat next to her on the stoop. Mia, oh Maya, teacher sent me to look for you. Seems like you've gone missing. You okay? Mia just shakes her head, too ashamed to talk. Now, I get actors ask me all the time, do I have to do what it says in the stage direction? Right? Do I have to hyperventilate into my hands? Do I have to shake my head, too ashamed to talk? And the short answer is no, you don't have to do exactly what it says. The longer answer is if the writer gives you something that's information about the story, then it's your job to tell that story. And that's why we're looking at the script in detail. If you want to change something here because it just fits you as a person better, or it fits your understanding of the story better, you absolutely can. Right? So if I'm playing Mia, yes, I could start with, I could start by hyperventilating my hands, but honestly, when I do that right now, I feel kind of fake. Like I'd really have to, take the time to build up into it. So maybe instead I start like this because this is more normal, like, oh God, nobody look at me. And that would work as a moment before, because then I have to come out of my hands and see my dad. Maybe that's it. Maybe there's a behavior that if for you when you are upset and kind of freaking out and hiding that is more natural. Sometimes I'll see somebody do the scene with like a knee up and their arms wrapped around their knee. You're getting their hands into the shot. Those of you who are here on Monday, remember how effective it is to get your hands into the shot so that you're not just relying on your face to tell the story of how you're feeling. Your hands, your body do a lot of that. So those are changes that we could make. Instead of hyperventilating into our hands, we could alter the script to fit me and my sense of the story, but I'm still keeping the writer's intent, which is that Mia's freaking out, and upset and hiding outside. The mistake would be to just ignore it. So I think when students ask, do I have to do what it says in the script? What they often mean is, can I skip it? And so if the answer is, if the question is, can I skip it? The answer is no. No, you can't skip it. If the question is, can I change it to something that I think tells the story better or that works better for an audition? Absolutely you can. You can always make that change. The least effective way to tell the story is just to skip what the writer gave you. That hopefully is obvious. Mia just shakes her head, too ashamed to talk. Now we're on page 15. What's up? Crying. I can't do it. Now this is a trap. I had a session with I forget her exact title, story editor, basically somebody who was overseeing a team of writers on a TV show in Toronto. And I was connected to her by a friend because she was doing some coaching and I wanted to learn more about writing and about stories. And she told me, oh yeah, I put in notes like this, crying, he shrugs, she shakes her head. I put those in for the producers because the producers aren't necessarily artists. And if I just give them the script, they won't necessarily know what the character is feeling. And so I put those in so that anybody who reads the script is like, oh, I get it. She's crying. She's very upset. That's for the people who are reading the script. She's like, when I give that script to an actor later, I take all those notes out. I'm not going to tell them exactly how to feel. That would be wrong. So this is a trap when you get this in the script. It's good information about what the writer intends. So the writer intends that here at the beginning of the scene, that if you're Mia, you are very upset. Now, they don't care if you leak. If crying is something that you can access, great. But if you were like, oh yeah, I really feel like I need to get there emotionally and the character should be crying, it would be fine if you were crying up here, or down here, or on any one of these lines in the first about page of the scene, basically anywhere in there. It doesn't have to be right before the line, I can't do it. And often, again, I see students fall into that trap of, oh, it says crying, so I have to cry on that moment. Instead of, oh, I read it for information, and I'm going to make a choice that I think tells the story better and more clearly for me. Denny, well, that would be a shame. I've got an awesome recital present for you, better than flowers. Give it to someone else. I can't go out there. I'm not like you or Mom or even Teddy. It's true. Teddy told me today he was leaving home to go on tour. Best 4-year-old drummer in rock history. Mia laughs through her tears. Okay, good information. You don't have to laugh. You don't have to laugh in any particular way, but what we have to know is that the dad, who we had described up here as half hipster, half square, he says something funny, right? He jokes about Teddy, who's the 4-year-old. We saw that in the crossed out bit. That they're all sitting at, and you might not know that unless you had the crossed out part, but they're in the Hall house, so in their own house. Teddy is 4, he's there at dinner with them. Okay, Teddy's probably the younger brother. Good, I don't have to invent these things. I'm not like your mom or even Teddy. Teddy told me he's leaving home to go on tour, best 4-year-old drummer in rock history. Mia laughs through her tears. So he makes her feel better. The dad comes in and he says something that's kind of dorky and funny, and he makes her feel better. I used to get the most gnarly jitters before a show. Could barely hold my sticks. My hands would shake so much. Great, now we know the dad is a musician, or was a musician, because he says, I used to. Then how did you play? And Kat, who's the mom, comes in, says he got wasted. Kat is standing in the stage doorway with Teddy. A pair of 40s before every show, not recommended for you. Danny, your mother's right. Social services frowns on drunk 10-year-olds. Besides, when I puked on stage, it was punk. It won't work as well for the classical music crowd. Such snobs. Mia laughs. No more tears. Okay, so again, this doesn't have to happen on this moment. And this is another really easy mistake to make when you're looking at the script, is you think, oh, well, I have to do the stage direction exactly where it's written. And this is where what's written on a page and what comes through in your life are always going to be different. The writer has to write it as lines, action, lines, because otherwise it doesn't make sense when you look at it. But in real life, the lines and the action can overlap, in complex and interesting ways. And that's your job as the actor to bring in some of that. What if I mess up? What if I'm terrible? I got news for you, kid. You won't be the first or the last terrible person on that stage tonight. Mia, but how do you get unscared? So at this point, she's feeling better. The mom and dad helped her feel better. But you read this and you're like, it's up to you. If this is like her going, okay, I felt better, but wait, I'm still freaked out. Or if this is her getting through the terrible and going like, okay, well, give me information, help me figure it out. How do you get unscared? You don't. You just breathe through it. That's what we do. We hang in there. We're musicians. Mia nods, takes a deep breath, gives her dad a fist bump. I have done the scene many, many times. I would say about 1 in 10 actors, does something like this. Almost everybody skips it because they're like, well, it feels weird. Remember camera technique lesson day 1. You're not going to do a fist bump in the air. You're going to do a fist bump down here. And honestly, as long as you do it down at waist level, it's going to look fine. You do it towards the person you're talking to, and that little bit of physicality, like, okay. Now, if I was doing this, if I was doing this as an audition and there's a high five or a fist bump, I'll use my own hand because then I get to touch something real and that feels better to me. But so if I'm doing a fist bump, I'll actually do something like this, but just down where the camera can't see, because that feels better to me. And so I'm like, and that's going to feel better to me. Recital hall day. On stage, Mia plays Tchaikovsky's Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairy. She's terrified, takes deep breaths, and she's good. Not great, but she gets through it. Second, Mia finishes Denny, Kat, and Teddy cheer. On stage, alone, Mia smiles. Exterior recital parking lot. As the applause ring out, the family watch their grungy first car. Mia has her hands over her eyes. Okay, you can open your eyes now. Mia does and stops when she sees something on the front seat of the car. What is that? Your first recital present. Then they open the door to reveal a cello with a giant bow. It's not a rental? Nope, it's all yours. Mia squeals. She runs to the cello and hugs it and sees that it has a small inscription on the back that reads Mia's first cello. And exterior recital parking lot day. As they drive off, punk music blaring, we see Mia smiling with the cello in her lap, its neck sticking out the window. The punk music is overtaken by the sound of oncoming sirens. Now, this scene does not appear in the movie. I got the movie today thinking, oh, I'll show them the scene to see how it went. And in the movie, the dad, there's a quick clip of the dad riding his bicycle with a cello on his back, in a bright turquoise case, and he delivers it with a bow on it. This recital scene, they used it for the audition, and like they actually used this for the audition for young Mia. I'm sure that everybody who auditioned for it really sweat over it and was worried about making it perfect. It didn't show up in the film at all. So that happens a lot. The script changes. Sometimes a piece of the script will be written just for the audition, but more often the script is going to keep changing, especially with a feature film where they're spending a lot of time sweating about the story. So if we're going into here, the project or the style, I would say this is a drama, and usually you'll say that in what's called the breakdown for which you will get with an audition. You'll get the name of the project and union, non-union, the name of the director, the name of the producer, the name of the casting director, and then there'll be a storyline that'll say something like, and probably this is where they got this. Let me pull it up. If I stay, IMDb. Life changes in an instant for young Mia Hall after a car accident puts her in a coma. During an out-of-body experience, she must decide whether to wake up and live a life far different than she'd imagined. The choice is hers if she can go on. Probably that's all you would get on the breakdown. And then if you were really clever, then you could go onto Wikipedia and find out that it is based on a novel of the same name that was written 5 years earlier. And then you could be one of those super smart prepared actors who went and researched the novel a little bit, and then you would know more about the character and more about the story and the sort of why the flashbacks were happening. Again, it wouldn't take you very long, especially if you have access to IMDb. So that's the Internet Movie Database, imdb.com. And Wikipedia or any sort of browser. Okay, so that'll give you a sense of the story, the project or the style. The story of this scene, if I was going to put it in one sentence, and in class I always say, put it in one sentence. Right? So because we want to make this simple. So simple that like as you're in the back seat and your mom's driving you to the audition, you can go, oh wait, did I ask those questions that Michael recommends? Right? If you want to spend lots and lots and lots of time pulling apart the story in different ways, check out one of those 2 books that I put in the chat window. The Power of the Actor, or Audition, or 3 books, I guess. Audition, Power of the Actor, or The Intent to Live. I would say pick one because there's a lot of information there. But what we want is for you to be able to do this and just make enough choices that will to help you do it in a way that is more full, and to work with the writer to get the story out. So what's the story of this scene? Mia is freaking out, or if you were playing the character, I would recommend putting it in I language. So you say, I'm freaking out because I have to perform and I'm scared and my dad comes and makes me feel better. Perfect, 1 sentence. So before and after, this is the moment before and the moment after the scene. This is one of the places where actors get to show their own understanding of story. So what we've got here is Mia huddles on the stoop. So in this one, and this doesn't often happen, you basically have the moment before written for you. You're huddling, so you're like all closed up in some way on the sitting outside and feeling bad. So that's what you're doing in your moment before. In the moment after, right, the scene continues after you say, we're musicians. There's a fist bump that's written in, and then what? Do you take a deep breath? Do you get your instrument? Do you, and so that ideally in your body, you're acting from before this camera starts. So basically when they say stand by and before they say action in the audition, and you're continuing to do the acting until after you hear cut. Beats or changes, a good story involves some kind of change. And I think that in this one, I wanted to use it as an example because the changes are really simple, are really clear. Right? We've got we've got crying, laughs through her tears. Oh, there's a change. Mia laughs, no more tears. Super clear changes. Sometimes it will even say, there'll be brackets and it'll say beat. Looking for the changes in the script help you understand what's happening. Now there's a reason that I don't have something like, what is your character feeling on here? Because again, when you are writing a book, you have to often be clear about, well, she's feeling one thing. But in real life, we can be feeling 9 things at the same time. Yeah, and Mia, if I'm playing Mia, I have to be aware that I'm scared. I'm also probably a little bit excited. I'm nervous. I'm sad because I've given up and run out. I have like a physical experience in my body, which is like a tightness in my chest or short of breath. And then there's all of the feelings about the dad, comparing myself to him because he's a professional musician, even comparing myself to the brother. So there's lots of different feelings happening. And I think that is a really simple mistake that I see students make is they say, well, my character is sad, which is sort of like trying to paint a picture and just taking blue paint and going like, and painting the whole thing blue. What we want you as an artist to remember, and the actor's job is to remember that it's not lines, it's life. And we want you to bring the life to it, the complexity of that. So we've got, what's the story? And if you want to get into this more complex stuff, great. But if you're just like, what's the story? Oh, right. Character's freaking out, dad comes, makes her feel better. Boom, next thing. 3 words to describe the character. And I would say start with yourself. 3 words to describe Mia. If I'm playing Mia, then I'm like, perfectionist and smart and sensitive. And then I have to make some decisions about the dad. Now, if I'm working with a student in class, I'll usually say, who's the most important person in the scene? And so you absolutely can do 3 words about every single character, but usually there will be one person who's the primary person you're connecting with, who you're mostly talking to, who the relationship is mostly with. That's going to be your primary eye line. And so in this case, I would say that's the dad, right? The dad is doing most of the talking, telling most of the mom comes in for a second, but it's pretty much the dad, right? Who gives the advice at the end. There's the fist bump. He comes to find her at the beginning. Okay, so the other character, 3 words to describe the dad. He's dorky and funny and kind. Okay, so now I kind of just have a sense of who these characters are. Oh, okay, it's the like perfectionist girl, and the like, dorky, funny dad. Strong feeling or opinion, and when you're doing the scene, and this is really connected to what I said about confidence yesterday, like if you were acting this scene, whether you were doing it in class or in an audition, you would want as much as possible to just really be breathing and seeing the other person. So a lot of your attention, ideally, when you're doing the acting, is on seeing the other person and feeling whatever is actually present for you. And this is where it's easy to get lost into script analysis, to go like, well, I made 1,000 decisions about my script. And this is why I recommend keeping it pretty simple, because you just want something that is so simple that when you're not thinking about it, maybe you get just enough. And so students will often go like, well, my dad, I think he's kind of funny, right? Which is like a little bit, kinda, sort of. Maybe he's this, maybe he's the opposite. He's funny, but he's also dumb. The choice that is going to help you the most when you get to performance is to make a strong feeling or opinion choice. So I would say if what's on top for you is like, my dad's really funny, then make him really funny. And think about, okay, how do I feel with somebody who I think is really funny? Who is that person for me? Whether I have that person right now, or I just remember it. I'm like, oh, I remember what it's like to have somebody who I think is really funny and deal with them. And then objective is okay. But maybe if I'm playing it, like for me, I don't know about, funny doesn't seem on top for me. I know it was one of my 3 words, but I'm gonna go with dorky, right? So if I'm playing it, I'm the perfectionist and I'm sensitive and I'm freaking out. And I think my dad is a lovable dork, right? Just, he's such a dork. But he's like, it's a lovable dork. That's my strong feeling or opinion. What do I want from in the scene, right? I want to feel better. I want my dad to make me feel better. And so The objective, what I usually ask is, what do you want the other person to feel or do? Because it's really easy to get into objectives that are like, well, I want them to understand, or I want them to think. And that's going to be really hard to just look into somebody's eyes and connect with them and make them think something. But what you can usually do is you can make them feel something or do something. It's like, I can make my dad give me a hug, or I can try, right? Just because maybe if that's my objective, then I fall apart more. I'm like, actually, I'm such a mess. Like, just hug me. Maybe I want to them to make me laugh. Just make me laugh. Just be a dork, right? Maybe I want to make them feel bad, so they leave me alone. And the dad is just so funny and so charming that it doesn't work. But my objective isn't what you get. I could play Mia and I could say, I'm going to make my dad feel bad so he leaves and I get to not do this. But don't want to do it. I'm done. I'm just going to make him feel bad. But then he's so charming and I have to listen and I have to take him in. And he gets me anyway. So those are my basic questions. And that's added to the camera technique that came up last time. On Monday, we talked in detail about camera technique, and I think camera technique's really important. To decide on clear eye lines, to set up the frame. That's part of how you set up. And then once you've got that, you start looking at a script and going, okay, what's the story? What's the story of the scene? What's the feel of the show? How does the story change? Where are the beats in it? If you get excited about changes, you can. Honestly, it can change line by line. And the next little script we're going to look at, I'll show you, has like line by line changes in it. Then what are the characters? Those 3 adjectives. And go for single words because, again, you want to make it really simple, make it easy for you to remember and easy for you to bring into your telling of the story. And then once you've got those 3 words, what is my strong feeling or opinion about that person? And what do I want to make them do or feel? And often when I'm working with people in class, and Alexa, you've heard me do a little bit of this, and Luca, Carter, and Sophia, we did a bunch of this last week. Lincoln, we might have done this, when you were in class with me, is I'll have the student put a little bit of that in, put that strong feeling or opinion and what they want the other person to do or feel into a really simple phrase. So if I'm playing Mia, that the phrase that I might use is, leave me alone. I'm just going to play that. And then when I'm coaching the scene, if the actor just doesn't have enough of the feeling in them, if mostly what's happening is they're worried about the lines, which is connected to yesterday, right? If instead of having the ease in them, and being able to see the other person, then mostly they're like looking into their memory to try and remember the words. What I'll often do is say, okay, just look at the person who's playing your dad, or look at the eyeline for your dad and say, leave me alone. Good. Okay, if that was a 1, give me a 2. Leave me alone. If that was a 2, give me 3. Leave me alone. And I'll just work somebody up there and say, okay, good. Now start the scene from there, or say the lines like you said that. And that's really connected to what actors typically call subtext, which is what is under the lines. And so basically what we're doing is we're using that, our understanding of the character, the strong feeling or opinion, and the objective to find a really simple, strong piece of subtext for the entire scene. And leave me alone, if that's what I decide to play, is just, I'm not going to win. That's fine. We want to see somebody try hard to get what they want in different ways and fail, because it's very relatable. We're like, oh yeah, that's like my life. Honestly, if you're watching a scene and the character instantly gets what it is that they want, it's very hard to relate. It's like, leave me alone, and the other person just leaves. We kind of don't have a story. There's always that tension between what I want and what's happening in the world, or what the other characters want, and that's what makes for interesting stories. And we want, I had an acting teacher who was an American at one point say, fight to win, like keep score. You're in the entire scene, even if you're losing, your character's always keeping score. Like, are you getting what you want? So that was the lecture piece of day, what are we on, 3, Wednesday, April 1st, our Confidence on Camera seminar. Tomorrow we're going to be talking details, and Friday we're going to have casting director Judy Lee joining us. Now, I'm going to unmute everybody and open it up for questions. I would like to still, if at all possible, keep you, raising hands or doing something, to get our attention first, so that we don't end up talking over top of each other. But we don't need to use the little blue button now. Now we can do it for real. Lexi, hey! All right. Technology. Okay, you were all unmuted. Sophia, did you have a question about anything there? Yes.
How do you explain it so well?
I've been teaching for 18 years, and so I've been explaining this thing in different ways over and over again. Now, what's really interesting, and Lexi can probably speak to this, because the last time she heard me give anything like this piece of information was a long time ago. It was like years ago. Is that the thing that keeps me excited as a teacher is that my understanding of it keeps changing, and I keep playing with, well, there's all of this information I could give you, but which is the most useful? Because I want to keep it simple enough that it actually helps you do acting. You want to academically understand stories and get really into sort of pulling them apart and analyzing them. There's a million things you could do. But if you just want to be an actor and you just want to embody it, can you keep it simple enough that the choices you make you feel more? And I think that should be the benchmark for any kind of story choices. It doesn't make you feel more. And if it doesn't, it's probably not the right choice. It's probably not the right homework. Lincoln.
For scene study, do you suggest doing the breakdown technique called Wolfram? And want objective and a couple other things?
I think that you should try a couple of different things and go with the one that suits you the best. The version that I've just given you is the one that I like the best, which is to keep it super simple and go story, character, objective.
Yep.
But if doing a Wolfram,
I went to Tri-Cities Studios for classes, and they do it.
Yeah, there are a lot of different ways to break down stories, and I think you should experiment with the one that is the most effective for you. I think that the thing that I wish I had known much earlier in my career is that there is no one perfect way to do it. To decide how you're going to tell your story and make those choices. All of these different methods are really just a way of having a checklist in case you miss something. Because a lot of times when you look at a story just intuitively, you're like, yeah, I'm just going to feel into it. Maybe you miss some little thing. You forget to make a strong feeling or opinion choice about the other person, for instance, or you miss some detail about where they are in the world or where your eye lines are going to be. And so having a little checklist for yourself just makes it more likely that you're going to hit all of those bits. But like I was saying a minute ago, I think the benchmark should be, does it help you feel more? And does it help you feel more connected in the scene? And if it doesn't, then it was a really interesting academic exercise, but probably not the right homework. So that's why I stick with my super simple version.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. In that case, let me wrap up this piece of things there and show you the next script. So this one I can't post anywhere because it's a project called the Mysterious Benedict Society. This is Tiffany Mack was casting this. This is actually the scene that Carter used in class last week. Tiffany came in on Friday and I asked her to assign scripts that she had cast recently, and so she gave us this one. And so let me just share the screen with you. So if you were auditioning for this, you would, like I said, you'd get a breakdown that had the storyline, it had a little bit about the show, it had the name of the producer, and that kind of thing. Now, this is hopefully, I want to do something that was a little bit more immediately relevant for when you're auditioning, because if I stay, it was easy. This project, like I could go watch the trailer now because the project's already been made, or the movie's already been made. But most of the things you're auditioning for, you're not going to have that. And so what you would do in that case is you would have probably the probably the breakdown. Okay. So if I stay, you probably have the breakdown. The The Mysterious Benedict Society is a trilogy of children's books by Trenton Lee Stewart that follows the adventures of 4 children. One book was published, blah, blah, blah. The books are the first children, blah, blah, blah. So it's about these 4 kids who are like orphans and outcasts who are recruited by this guy, Benedict, for his secret society and sent on secret missions. And again, they're based on the trilogy of children's books. So if you really wanted, if you were auditioning for this and you really wanted details, you could go and search out information. You could look up Trenton Lee Stewart's website. I think he's got a website specifically for them. And I just found all this stuff by going on here and putting in the Mysterious Benedict Society, IMDb. Now, when I looked it up on IMDb, at first I didn't find any project. So it's currently not listed on IMDb because this is too new. But when I did a web search, I found this article here, Mysterious Benedict Society adaptation nears that took me here, nears series order at Hulu. Okay, so now I know the network. This was September 13th, 2019. The series is described, here we go, as the tale of 4 gifted orphans who are recruited by an eccentric benefactor to go on a secret mission. Placed undercover at a boarding school known as the Institute, they must foil a nefarious plot with global ramifications while creating a new sort of family along the way. Then I've got the writers, I've got the showrunners, and we did some of this in class last week, but I could go onto IMDb and look up the writers and the showrunners. I could go, okay, so let's look up Matt Manfredi and Darren Swimmer. And I could see the last things they wrote or did. So Matt Manfredi, looks like the last thing he wrote was, he wrote The Boys, Ride Along 3, Destroyer. So very serious Amazon TV series. This one I don't know anything about. Darren Swimmer, Shadowhunters. I think that there were two of the writers worked on The Boy, the movie. I think we discovered that last time when we went and looked up The Boy. Or maybe that was a different project. No, I think it was. So,
It was The Destroyer.
I don't know, but you could do a little bit of research for yourself and find that out. Right, so now we've got a sense of what these guys worked on. They worked on these two worked on Shadowhunters. That'll give you a sense of the style, right? So you know that it's on Hulu, but all these streaming services, they have different channels or different things for different people, so it doesn't immediately tell you, oh, this is the kind of show it is. So you basically have to look up the director and producer and watch the last thing that they did, just a little teeny clip of it. So you can get a sense of, oh, okay, that's the, it's Shadowhunters meets, The Destroyer, or whatever it is. It just gives you clues. It doesn't tell you for sure what they're going for with Mysterious Benedict Society, but it gives us a sense of it. It basically gives us our best guess. Now let me pull up the script for you. And so if you were reading Vic, let's see, have I still got everybody? Lexi, would you read the stage direction for me? Uh-oh. Have we unmuted everybody? Unmute all. Oh, Come on. It's not letting me unmute everybody.
There we go.
Lexi, would you read the stage direction?
Sure, I just don't see it.
No, yeah, I'm going to pull it back up in a second. I just wanted to come back so I can see all of your faces for a second.
Oh, okay.
Luca, will you read Vic?
Which part?
You're going to read a character named Vic, okay?
Okay.
And Hannah, will you read Rennie?
Where is it? Sure.
I'll pull it up in 1 second.
Okay.
Okay. So whenever you're ready, Lexi, start with the slug.
Interior dining hall, evening. Rainey is now maneuvering a large chunk of Salisbury steak into his mouth while reading a thick tome, Bleak House.
And let's pause there for a moment. If you were preparing this and you really wanted to go to the next level, you would look up Bleak House in your browser, and you would find that it's one of these incredibly thick, sort of like super boring books. So the fact that he's reading Bleak House is information, that he's like a real nerd. Back to you, Lexi.
He feels a shadow fall over him. The Boston accented would-be wit, Vic.
Hello, Vic.
Vic looks over his shoulder to see if cronies are watching before continuing.
How's the book?
Excuse me?
The book. Yeah, you like it?
Sure. It's enjoyable.
Sha, it's enjoyable. Enjoyable.
He said enjoyable.
Rainey is more perplexed than upset at the mockery.
Enjoyable isn't even that complicated a word.
Who you trying to impress? Muldoon? Muldoon?
Really, I just enjoy.
Rainey stops himself, grimaces. Vic rambles off.
Enjoyable.
Alexa, can you read kid?
Me? Alexa.
Wait.
Oh, right here. Just read this line.
Okay.
Vic is hilarious.
Quietly exasperated.
It's a basic word. It's a basic everyday word.
He gets up, dumps his tray, and leaves.
Okay, Luca, now we're going to replace you with Carter because he knows this one, and we spent some time working on a Boston accent. So last week when you worked this, Carter, do you remember what you did to get the Boston, New York accent? What did you do to help you figure it out? Do you remember me sending you to YouTube to watch YouTube videos of people with thick Boston, New York accents and just talking along with them until you got the sound of it?
Yeah.
Good. So let's read it again. We'll skip the stage direction and we'll just read it with the Boston accent so that you all can hear that just for fun. Go for it, Hannah.
Hello, Vic.
How's the book?
Excuse me?
The book, you like it?
Sure, it's enjoyable.
Sure, it's enjoyable. Enjoyable.
Said enjoyable.
Enjoyable isn't even that complicated a word.
Who you trying to impress, Muldoon?
Nobody, really. I just enjoy.
Enjoyable.
Vic is hilarious.
It's a basic everyday word.
Okay, great. So we read everything on the page out loud. We read the lines once. We would go back to what we talked.
I spoke with Lyle.
We make some decisions about the eye lines and things. You would rehearse like we talked about yesterday, where you suggest fact or you whisper it so you get the words without trying to get the story. But then understanding the story would be important. So let's go through this. If you had to put into your own words the story of this scene, what's the story of the scene in one sentence? Yeah, Luca.
They like Vic mocking what was the other name?
Rennie.
Yeah, Vic mocking Rennie over book.
Okay, great. Somebody else take a stab at it, right? If you're playing Vic, is what we're imagining. What's the story of the scene in a single sentence?
Like mocking people?
Does that give you enough detail to understand the story if you're playing Vic?
Not really.
Right? Yeah. So it's not wrong. It's just not complete enough. You took the idea of making it short and you just made it so short it doesn't give us enough information. What about you, Avia? If you're playing Vic, what would you say the story of the scene is?
It's kind of like Vic seems like a little bit full of himself in a way.
Great. And so do you hear how Avia did exactly the thing I was talking about? She said a little bit and in a way. So she made a really good, clear choice, but making choices is always makes us nervous. So the tendency is almost always to make those choices smaller by saying little bit, kind of, sort of, in a way, maybe, and so as a coach, I would just say, great, take all those away and say he's really full of himself. Okay, great. So if you're playing Vic, then he's really full of himself. We know he has cronies. It says, and if you didn't know what that word was, you would look it up and you would find out that he's got goons. He's got people who are backing him up. So it's like he's Draco Malfoy, and he's got Crabbe and Goyle right behind him, poof. And so he walks up like, "Hey, let me talk about your book. My big goon friends are backing me up here." What about you, Hannah? If you're playing Vic, what would your version of this story be? In a sentence.
Vic is just provoking Rennie, when Rennie's, I don't think Rennie has done anything so far to him, and he's just provoking him.
Good. So I'm provoking Rennie to try and what?
To try to get something out of him, some words in return.
Right. I want to get a laugh at his expense. I think that when Carter and I workshopped the scene last week, we played with, the whole scene was I'm going to bully Rennie to try and make my friends laugh. And so the scene was about making the cronies laugh. That's not the only choice. It was just the choice that we landed on. As long as we're using what the author gives us here, there's lots of choices that we can make. So if we go back to here, where are the changes in the script? And I can't see your hands and share the screen. So this one you might just have to jump in. Right? Feels a shadow fall over him. Where's the first change here?
From the first.
So
the fact that Vic is waiting for his gang to come before he starts?
Sure. Yeah, maybe there's a little micro beat here where he walks up and then he's throws a look over his shoulder. And then the first sort of more significant change in the script based on the dialogue, where is it?
The excuse me? Or
you absolutely can get really micro with your beats. I would say the first significant change is here. Sure, it's enjoyable. Sure, it's enjoyable. Enjoyable. That there's this here, right? It goes from I'm starting by mocking you to yeah, I got something that I can make fun of. Okay, and then when we played with it last week, one of the things that Tiffany really wanted was a really strong turn here. Now, there's no indication here in the stage direction. It's just in the lines, right? Vic's laughing about the thing. He's enjoying it. We've got it's mockery, and then he gets right in his face. Who are you trying to impress, Muldoon? So that was the beat that Tiffany decided she wanted. And you can't know what beats casting might want in the scene before you get there. It's not about trying to anticipate what they're going to want. It's really about just making your own choices about where are the significant changes in it. And I think where Lexi was going is that if you want to do that with each line, great. right? Like if that doesn't, if that helps you sort of bring more life to the scene, I really do think that, often there are multiple changes inside of a line, and that understanding where the meaning changes and where the focus of it changes can be really, really useful. The characters, give me 3 words to describe. Give me 3 words to describe Vic if you're playing Vic, right? So use I. I'm what? Lincoln, you got 3 words for me? Right, and just just throw them out. It's fine if it doesn't quite fit. We're just kind of throwing things at a wall.
Self-centered.
Great, and
Cocky.
yes, and
Influential.
great, good, and just remember those so that I can compare them when we come back. Via, give me 3 words.
Self-absorbed again. Annoying.
Great.
Comedic.
Right. Yeah. And so I think both of those fit the story. You're just going to end up with really different interpretation. So your choices shape the story you're going to tell, and this is sort of where the art of the actor is. It's not on the page. It's everybody's going to do the words, but each person, based on their life, and their understanding of the story, is going to make slightly different choices. What about you, Joanne? If you were playing Vic, what would be 3 words to describe Vic? You want me to come back to you? Okay. Give me 3 words to describe Rennie, Lexi.
For Rainy, I feel like she would be intelligent,
Yep.
misunderstood, and I would say probably caring.
Beautiful. And so one of the things that I want you to notice is that Lexi has chosen descriptive words from Rennie's perspective. But if you're playing Vic, then my suggestion is that when you're deciding on these characterizations, decide from Vic's perspective, because what we want is your choices to help you see the world through Vic's lens. And I think that your choices are completely accurate. From a story perspective, from our kind of 3rd person audience is sitting back going like, wow, Vic's a jerk, and Rennie's the kind, intelligent one. But if you're Vic and you want to play Vic and you don't want to just sort of pretend to be mean, then one of the things that can really help there is give yourself a reason to hate Rennie. Just deciding, you're like, okay, even I would be this mean to somebody under these circumstances, so I'm going to imagine that. So if you flip it around and from Vic's perspective, give me 3 adjectives to describe Rennie as Vic.
Okay. I would go probably I would stick with intelligence for sure, because he feels like, when I was describing him, I feel like he would be envious that she is intelligent and he is not. Probably because she is shy and a pushover, easy to target as well.
So we'd say a brown nose or a suck up, or like a teacher's pet, right? We'd make the language as judgmental as possible, and a wimp, and
okay.
Right? You're like, oh yeah, if I think about what it's like to have that opinion of somebody, right, you could even if connecting with being mean is challenging for you, you could decide that Rennie was mocking you, by just being herself.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. That she thinks she's so full of herself. Oh, you're so smart. Look at you reading a 1,000-page novel in the cafeteria.
Okay, that's cool.
Jerk. Don't make fun of me. And then so that's what I mean about being creative, to give yourself a reason to bully that person. I'm really not a bullier, And so this is based on sort of my own work. Because so often, especially because I'm bald, the kinds of characters that I get asked to play, are aggressive.
Me too, because I'm tall.
Right? And it's so weird. Like these things just with film and TV, it's like bald guys, mean. Tall girls, mean. Mean. And so it's like, cool, okay, well, if I gotta pretend that's real, I might have to be creative about how I get there. Nobody has to know what's going on the back end. Hannah, if you're playing Vic, and when we go with some of these adjectives that we've already thrown out there, what might your strong feeling or opinion of Rennie be?
From Vic's perspective?
Yeah, if you're Vic.
Probably like very tolerant.
Intolerant, is that what you're looking for?
Tolerant, so like the pushover.
No, your strong feeling or opinion. So a feeling word. So I hate his guts. I think he's hilarious. I just want him to leave. Like what would your strong feeling or opinion, or something else? What would your strong feeling or opinion of Rennie be?
I think like, this kid might be fun to like keep like playing around with.
Okay. Right. So I'd play with it if we were workshopping it to find stronger feeling language, but I think it's the right idea, right? To like, I'm going to enjoy humiliating you.
Yeah, kind of like
strong feeling or opinion. Okay, great. Right. Like we just take it and we put it into the words that make you feel more. Yeah. And this is where, as your coach, can only guess up to a point. You're always going to be the ultimate decider of which words make you feel more. When you're like, oh yeah, humiliate doesn't do it for me. It's got to be something else, whatever. You find the words that make you feel. So Lincoln, if you were playing Vic and you wanted to play with that, just like, I'm going to enjoy this, then you might, we were going for an objective. So I'm going to humiliate Rennie to make my friends laugh. Then the phrase you might use might be like, hey guys, watch this. So say that, to say, hey guys, watch this.
Hey guys, watch this.
Yeah, but just really way meaner. Like tell your friends.
Hey guys, watch this.
Good. Alexa, you might play with a phrase like, I'm gonna get you. Try that. Say, I'm gonna get you. Oh, yeah. First, you're gonna unmute yourself. Oh.
So I'm gonna get you. Is that one?
Yeah, but just say it, okay?
I'm gonna get you.
Okay, and I would say like it didn't fire her up, right? And so Alexa tried, you suck.
You suck.
Good. Now, did you hear how there's more feeling in her voice? And that's the benchmark. It's not like, are these words right? It's like, when you say it, does it make you feel more? And so that's the goal of this whole process of making decisions, is to get to that one simple charged phrase in a way that fits the story, that fits you, that makes you feel more. That's where I'm going with it. And in class, so often, if I can find that charged phrase, the whole scene will come to play. Okay, we've run a little bit over. Does anybody have final questions for me before we wrap up? Okay. Thank you for sticking with me for a little over an hour. Have a fantastic rest of your day. And thanks for joining me for another one of these. We'll be back tomorrow and Friday. Ciao.
Thank you. Bye.